Welcome to this episode. On this episode, I'm talking to Gary Daz. He's got 18 years of experience building businesses. We look at the difference between what a lead is and what a prospect is, how he's built his business over that period of time, how he's built his teams based on what color they are, and we delve into the one thing that he thinks people need to know when turning their business around. Gary, thanks for coming in. Before we get into things, are you all right just to give us a bit of a background on yourself, where you started in business, where you feel like you are on your business journey now?
Yeah, I became a mortgage broker in 2003, 2004. Went self-employed in 2006 because it was about the time that Money Supermarket started. So you could buy your leads, names and numbers from third parties, and essentially ended up building a business over the course of 10 years that I absolutely hated because all I did was buy leads. I did no marketing for 10 years. Fortunately, I'd taken a backstop because of the credit crunch. Mortgages weren't available. My niche from sort of 2006 till 2009 was bad credit. So when they disappeared, I did life insurance for 7 years, carried on buying those leads. But in 2015, had my most profitable year ever. But the bank said, no, you can't move because you left all your profit in the business. And that bank that I was with, Cambridge, I think it was, only took salary and dividends. So that then sent me on a journey of, right, I'm going to find 180 lenders in 3 days, found a niche as self-employed. We moved into a new house in the October, told my team of 13, you've all got to find new jobs. And then effectively started again January 2016 as a self-employed mortgage specialist, having only done one mortgage. And then it's just been sort of social media, content marketing. Haven't bought a lead since 2015. We've had ups, we've had downs. You know, that first 10 years, I probably made more mistakes than I did successes. But it's been much, much easier since 2016. And now I've got the mortgage brokerage, which is about a team of 15. And then I've got a training side of sort of consulting side of what we do, where I actually work with mortgage brokers and financial services business owners to help them generate leads, increase sales, maximize profit, which we've done since about 2019.
Lovely. Okay, so in the first business where you were buying leads, I know, like you said, you haven't bought any leads now. I mean, there are days where I feel like I wish I could just buy leads, right? So what... in a way, I guess you do still buy leads in the sense that you have a certain amount of spend per lead. Back then, looking back now at the whole picture, was it easier just buying leads, or is it easier generating your own leads? Like, what's the pros and cons of both of those two things?
Yeah, so it's a consistent theme in the mortgage industry that, I just buy leads, like new people come in. But what they don't realise, probably the same in a estate agency, you start your business, you've then got to find somebody who's ready to buy a house, ready to get a mortgage. If they're a first-time buyer, they're probably going to take 3, 6, 9 months. There's the school half terms, there's saving for a deposit, there's bad credit, that all are outside forces that we can't control. So that time from when you get the lead to actually converting it can be a very, very long time.
Yeah.
But in Money Supermarket days, sort of back in 2006, it was bloody brilliant.
Yeah.
I could literally turn around and say what postcode I wanted, what mortgage value I wanted, and I would just go after remortgage leads because I knew they already had a mortgage and wanted to get something better. And in those days, it was all self-cert. So, under 75% loan to value, you didn't need income. You didn't need bank statements. It was like, sign this piece of paper. You can have as much money as you want.
Yeah, I signed many of those pieces of paper.
Yes.
Okay, so that's more about then understanding, maybe, do you think that you've been on a journey of understanding what is a lead? Because, we called it buying leads, but effectively you weren't really buying leads. You were just buying data. They weren't leads at all. They were people who possibly needed a mortgage that didn't have any want or need for you to contact them. But they might at some point.
Yeah.
And so back then, when we were talking early 2000s, right?
Yeah, 2006 till 2009.
So mid-2000s.
Yeah.
Nurture journeys, all that sort of stuff is not really a thing. You get it, they either go ahead or they go in the bin, pretty much.
Correct.
So I'm guessing a hell of a lot of them went in the bin.
Definitely.
And that then led you, I guess, that's what then led you to the thinking of, like, there's got to be a better way than paying to put stuff in the bin. So now, how does it work then? If you're not going down that road, How do you try to bring business in for all of the advisors that work for you? Or do they do it themselves, or how does that work?
So we have the two arms. So we've got the self-employed division that we help to understand how to generate the inquiries. What I realized in 2015, so from 2009 till 2015, I was still buying leads. I was buying life insurance leads. So again, names, numbers. But what happened was, where so many people transitioned from the mortgage industry to the life insurance industry, those providers started to sell them to more than one person. They denied it, of course. But if I rang you and you said, oh yeah, I've already spoken to somebody, it's not difficult to work out what was happening. But what I saw in the fitness space, which I think is very similar to services in mortgages, was a guy called Jamie Alderton doing video. And I thought, okay, no one in the mortgage industry is doing video.
And what year is this?
2015.
Yeah.
No one in the mortgage industry was doing video. No one was really posting on content. I'd never used social media. You know, I'd been on it and all it was people posting their food and cats and all that kind of stuff in those days. But I basically made this promise to myself in January 2016. I kept my PA, started again, and all I did was just start to post once a day on Facebook. Then I started joining Facebook groups of business owners, because that was my kind of niche, and that started to work. In the June of 2016, we started doing video. In November, I went live for 30 days and got absolutely obliterated by my mates for obviously going live on Facebook and stuff like that. And I then, in 2017, started just getting out and meeting people. But instead of giving them the good old business card or collecting business cards, I said, oh, you on Facebook? Which everybody was for our age demographic. Obviously, the kids aren't now. But it was like, just come and go on Facebook. And then I'm posting about mortgages and asking, you know, mortgage-related business kind of questions. And that just continued to escalate and emulate and grow. And the more networks I spent, the more time in. You know, so predominantly our leads now come from me as a personal brand, speaking on stages, consistently posting content and educating our consumers. And then, as you rightly said, we don't put leads in the bin anymore. Since 2016, the first thing I learned very quickly was email marketing. Yeah. So I've always had an email marketing system that everybody goes into, and about 23% of our inquiries every month, you know, we'll book in a call from someone that we've never had a conversation with, but join the email list off an ebook or a gift or whatever, and they'll just book in.
And do you think that people in your industry or the businesses that you know go in and help, a lot of them are still yet to grasp that?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. They're still using Excel spreadsheets to track what's going on in their business. And I'm like, well, what are you doing? But equally, you'll know this, it's a false economy, because you start your business mostly with referrals and recommendations. So what did I do when I went self-employed in the November of 2006? I phoned everybody in my phone. I sent an email to all of my Hotmail people saying, hey, I've gone self-employed. Do you need help with the mortgage or insurance? And referrals are like buses. You know, they'll all come at once or they won't come at all. They're unpredictable. They're unscalable. But they do convert at 70, 80%. Yeah. Whereas when you start going into social media world, or especially going into ads world, that percentage comes down. Yeah. And that's a big mindset shift. Yeah. Because I think most brokers have an employed mindset rather than a self-employed entrepreneurial mindset.
When I talk to a lot of businesses now and ask them what their conversion rates are, they don't know, but they sort of, you know, say, oh, yeah, they're pretty good. They're sort of 60, 70, 80%, that sort of thing. And my first thing to these people is always like, that's really bad. It's terrible. You know, your conversion rate's supposed to be 33%. They're like, what? How can it be bad? If it's supposed to be 33% and it's 60%, how's that bad? And I'm like, you're not charging enough. Like 33% of people are supposed to go ahead, 33% of people are supposed to have a think about it, and 33% of people are supposed to go somewhere else. And if it's any higher than that, you're not charging enough. And if it's any lower than that, no one wants what you're offering. Yeah. So it should be around there. And it's like, whoa, all of these things, like, you know, like you say, if you're starting a bootstrap business, then you are probably starting with contacts you already know. And then it feels a bit weird to go outside of that, doesn't it? And just start, I don't know, cold calling people, because your conversion rate is going to go through the floor and you're going to feel like no one wants what you're offering. So for those companies that you meet, like we were just talking about there, that are still running on an Excel spreadsheet, for instance, where do you think, I don't know, where do you think that they start with the idea of, because, sorry, I'm going a bit round in a circle here, but like when you were talking about Facebook, I was thinking about my own journey, and very similar to yourself, but it's very different now. Like I saw a study the other day, I think, by some magazine or something in the States, where they interviewed loads of university students, and it was something like 75% of these university students considered themselves content creators. right?
They post once a week.
Well, they probably just post once a week, right? But even so, they still consider themselves content creators. That's a very different world to 2016, like you say, where people were just using Facebook to like maybe catch up with an aunt they hadn't seen or school friends or whatever.
Definitely.
So first question is, how do you try to stay relevant in that sea of content in today's market of social media?
And equally transparently, we're talking about challenges and difficulties. What I didn't predict is in 2019, when I started teaching other mortgage advisors and financial services business owners how to do video, how to create content, all that. Now there's an absolute mass of them. So we do literally fall into a sea of noise. So I think we have to remember more often than not now, there is more content out online. There's more people communicating online. The content promotion, whether it's short form, long form like we're doing now, it's necessarily 20% of the effort goes into creating it, but 80% goes into actually just sharing it as much as you possibly can.
Yeah.
Because the algorithms only show their content's 3% if you're lucky. So a small percentage of people will actually get to see it. Now, something I've just recently seen on my phone that I've made my team aware of is like with your Facebook profile, you go to the settings, it tells you how many people are online now in that little settings tab. So it's like, don't post when there's only 100. Keep an eye on that as to what time of day is relevant, and you might get a bit more engagement on your posts. But importantly is, yes, you're producing content, but all of that is social medias. Unless you own that data and you have a method, whether it's an event, a webinar, an ebook, a physical copy of the book, some kind of scorecard or whatever it is, you've got to get that into your own database on your email marketing, because then you control the relationship and the nurture.
Yeah.
And that's been the game changer for us.
Do you think, I find with a lot of businesses that I talk to that they're aware of that methodology, and they maybe even do that, and then they have wherever they put that data does nothing at all. So maybe a fancy version of an Excel spreadsheet. So they feel like they're already doing that. If you was just to say like, are you doing what Gary said? They'd go, yeah, we do that. But then the two bits that I tend to see that are missing are that one, you don't then communicate with that group of people, and two, if you do, you're communicating in a very broad sense, like you've got their email address, so you send them emails, as opposed to you collect the data tells you what you should be communicating, and then the system's intelligent enough to put the right things in front of the right people in order to stand out. Would you say, like, I don't know, is that something that you've experienced, like the difference between just, I don't know, broadcasting out your content to 5,000 people or getting a bit personalised with each of those messages?
I think, and I know obviously you've got technology that does this, and it probably falls into the trap of the 33% that you referenced. 33% of do bugger all.
Yeah.
33% will do what I do, which is probably just broadcast out a little bit.
Yeah.
But when I collect a lead name and a number, you talk to majority of marketing agencies, they'll say, right, that if they're really shit, they'll say get first name and email address. If they're a little bit better, they'll say get first name, last name, email address, and maybe phone number if you're lucky.
Yeah.
Whereas I have 10 questions on all of my forms, like when are you thinking of buying? How's your credit? Have you got a deposit? What are you doing? Buying, investing? What type of deals you're interested in? So although I don't do it to the level that you would do, I'm in that middle 33 where I can go, okay, you've got no deposit.
Yeah.
Here's an email on 5 tips to save for a deposit. If you're a first-time buyer, I'm not going to send you stuff related to buy-to-lets.
Yeah.
So I try and be a bit sophisticated, but I'm nowhere. It's running reports and using tags and looking at fields and segmenting to then bust out that email. It's not automated like any kind of where you're sitting the 33% with your tech.
Yeah, it's hard because, like, as you say,
hard.
you can't just go to a cold prospect and say fill out these 100 questions. No one's going to do that. Probably even 10 might be a bit much. But I find that there's the various stages of the funnel is where the questions start to get collected anyway. As taking it purely as a mortgage broker, for instance, there's going to be a stage where you sit down and do a bit more of a fact find with somebody, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to go ahead with you, And so now you have got all this information, more relevant content could be going out at that point to make sure that they are going to come back to you.
Definitely.
As I'm not saying necessarily like, when someone's just browsing social media, they should have to do an entire, 30-page fact find. But as they start coming through, it changes. Okay, so what's some of the things that when you had the first business or even the second business, some of the things whereby you have learnt, like, I don't know, what's realistic and what isn't realistic, you know, whereby, I don't know, you sit down with somebody now who tells you they're going to go self-employed and they're going to do this, and you think to yourself, yeah, you're not going to do that, because, you know, everyone thinks they're going to do that. I've thought I'm going to do that. Like, what are some of the things where you think, like, if someone's listening to this, they're in a bootstrap business and, like, you know, they're feeling a bit disappointed with themselves, what's some of the disappointments that you had to get over where you realised, like, you just weren't being realistic?
Yeah. I think it's the analogy that people underestimate what they can do in 10 years, but overestimate what they can do in a year. I think I've said that round the right way.
Yeah.
So I think it's really difficult to do everything when you're first starting out, and that's often putting your time and energy and effort into the right areas that are actually driving your business is one of the things that I see more often than not.
What sort of things would you say they are?
Well, if you look at the 4 key hats that we have to wear, marketing, sales, admin, finances, I think particularly in the UK, we're more aligned to doing everything but sales. You know, I'm quite lucky that my dad's been self-employed since he was, 20 years old. He's now 80. You know, we did markets when I was 13. So I'm very key on selling for 30 years doing that. So it was never a problem for me, but it was he's more a relationship salesperson. Whereas I think a lot of people will go and build their blog or fiddle with their website or do their admin, but actually that doesn't necessarily drive the business in the direction you want to do. You know, I'm being transparent. I did so much event speaking, going to networking events from 2017 until 2020 before we all couldn't leave our houses. And I've been lazy the last few years. You know, the world's opened up, nearly 2 years probably. It's probably been free reign to get back out there. I haven't been out there as much as I should. And I've noticed a dip in our, brand, our awareness, people knowing who we are and what we do, because I've been lazy as a result of that. I know I need to do it, but I'm too used to working in my office at home now. It's quite comfortable, Yeah. So I think it's our own internal voices that probably get a little bit in the way of, time management issues. I need to pick the kids up. I want to grow, but actually, what am I going to have to sacrifice in order to be able to do that? And it's a real tussle mentally, I think. That's the biggest challenge with business.
I know you're a gym person, and I guess it's a bit like that, isn't it? It's like, there must be some analogy in the gym whereby people would rather do anything than actually the thing that's going to make a difference.
Yeah, well, we've all seen the WKD advert, where they're sitting in the sauna, pretending they're at the gym just playing on their phone.
It's like that, though, isn't it? Like, for business, I think that's that's a great point, and it is. I remember, I think I mentioned it on a previous podcast. I had a friend who started a health business and alternative health. And I went to see her, and in her office there was a pile of leaflets on the side. And regardless of what you think of leaflets or not, I said to her, like, what are they for? And she was like, well, deliver. And I was like, but you haven't delivered them though, have you? They're just fucking sitting on the side, right? So. And her business wasn't going great. And I said to her, however much money you've got in the bank, when it runs out, that's when shit's going to get real for you. That's when your business is going to start working. And I saw her about a year later, and she was like, it's so true. As soon as the money ran out, I was out there making shit happen.
Yeah.
Until then, like you say, it's like, I think the website could be a bit better. I could add an extra page. I could change that logo a little bit. I could do anything other than actually make some sales. I think from the rooms that we've been in before, whereby there's a room of entrepreneurs, you also can see that quite clearly there, can't you? Whereby a lot of these people have got great ideas, but they're shit scared of the idea of having to do sales. Like when you talk to them, they're like, all I need to do is find a person who can make sales for me. It's like, you're going to have to do that. If you can't do that, like, no one else is going to be able to do that, right? It's a great point. And I suppose, like, maybe, I don't know if this is relevant for you or not, but when you're first starting out, maybe you also underestimate just how many sales you can make. I know I did. I used to crunch numbers whereby I'd make whatever it was that I was selling, I'd continue to make the price of it cheaper and cheaper and cheaper in my head to try and make the sale easier, and the amount I was going to sell higher and higher and higher, and it just doesn't work like that. Do you know what I mean? It's not like if you were going to sell it for £100 and you were going to sell 100 of it, if you sell it for 10, you could now sell 1,000. Like, no, it just doesn't work like that. Is that something that you experienced, or? Yeah,
I think so. I think particularly when you're in scarcity mindset as well, it's easier to think, oh my God, there's not enough leads around. I know what I'll do. I'll reduce my fee.
Yeah.
well, no, you're better off actually packaging together a better offer and charging more for it in essence. And I think something that came off of the back of what you were just saying as well, I think two of the fears starting out, particularly in that bootstrap phase, are waiting for perfectionism. And again, it comes back to what you were saying about the leaflets. So many people won't do the video because it's not perfect. They won't do that because they don't want to do, they want everything to be perfect. And they use that as the excuse of almost, you need to do what you need to do, even when you don't want to.
Yeah.
And I've found more than anything else within that whole journey is it's underestimated how hard it is to get started. If you look at the diet, getting somebody to do 90 days of a consistent diet to lose weight is a long time. That's why a lot of fitness trainers will go after getting a big hit of fat loss in the first week, which will mostly be water. It won't actually be weight, but that gives the little bit of a mindset boost and a bit of a dopamine hit to kind of keep going.
Yeah.
But the problem in business, I went from a business I absolutely hated, paying 20 grand a month for low quality life insurance leads, getting home at 8 o'clock at night, almost having to sit by the side of the road going, I need to switch off from this beast that I had created. Because the problem with life insurance is you obviously if it comes off, you have to pay the insurance company back. So as quick as if I stopped making sales, I still owe money to the insurance company because 20% of the turnover is falling off.
Right.
So I had to stop and obviously reset, and that's why I was so desperate to get out of it. But in 2016, it was 9 till 9. It was 6-day weeks. We still had holidays and stuff like that, but it was sprinting for a whole year, which was a bit like the sacrifice, whether it's saving money for your deposit for your house. You've got to give stuff up. And I think a lot of people go into business kind of with a slow and steady attitude that it will forever happen. Whereas actually, if you made that sacrifice for 1 year, that will build the next 3 or 4, whereas most people will spread that pain out over 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. It is exactly like the gym and the diet, isn't it? It's like, continually go to the gym forever and diet forever, or you could do it properly for 6 months, 12 months, and then maintain.
Yeah.
Do you think that, in your experience, from everything you just said there, do you think that entrepreneurs are just kind of born that way, in the sense that there are certain jobs, I'm sure, that you could think of that you could just never do because your brain just doesn't function that way, and other people can? Do you think that entrepreneurship's like that, or do you think it can be taught?
I think there's a depends that comes with that. If you have a core skill, then you can carry, if you're an accountant that's done all your accounting qualifications and you're then able to move into entrepreneurship and self-employment and then business owner, you still carry that employee mindset for a long period of time. However, you often hear, the dyslexic, the person who's got that challenge that they just go and find a way, or someone who hasn't necessarily got a core skill, but is really good with people and can get the people. I think actually, as I'm saying this, I'm kind of speaking my thoughts out loud. It's often when you can't do things, that's what makes great entrepreneurs, because your skill is them people. Like I've got a blessing and a curse. I can do a hell of a lot. I can build a landing page. I see marketing as a bit of an adult Lego now. I still try and get involved in too much in my business that I shouldn't necessarily get involved in. That's probably a curse that's passed down from my dad as well, because he still does the same thing. But I know people who are friends of mine who haven't really got any core skill, but have started something, and then they've just managed to make a bit good. They're good at sales, so they make a bit of money, and then they just go and bring in other people to do absolutely everything, and they're sitting there doing nothing all of a sudden. I'm like, I see it when I do someone's mortgage. I'm like, this guy's running a £5 million a month business. He's got no idea what his turnover is. He's got no idea what his profit is. He's got decent money in the bank, but they're completely clueless about what's going on. And I'm like, but I'm knowing everything, and I'm nowhere near where you are. So where am I going wrong?
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I suppose.
So I think it's the makeup of the individual.
Yeah.
And I think it's your ability around team and people that is probably one of the key things.
Yeah, because you do get different types of entrepreneurs, don't you? You get people that like to hold on to everything, and you get people that like to release everything. All different types of entrepreneurs, I suppose, in that regard. So you've gone past the stage of buying leads. You've gone past the stage of generating leads for yourself. It's starting to expand out into having a team. I think you said you've got a team now of
19 in total.
19.
We're at, yeah.
And you're going out and helping other businesses with this as well. What sort of challenges have you learned around having a team?
Juggling all the different personalities. One of the biggest game changers for me, because up until 2015, I had a team of 15 people, which was far too much for a £750,000 turnover. I know now, but I didn't have any I didn't have any managers, any head of ops. Everyone I recruited had no experience, because I was like, no, everybody needs to do it my way, because I thought it was the Billy Big Bollocks. The big change that I've made now is I will pay more and recruit experts who do stuff that I can't necessarily do, and try and delegate it as much as I possibly can. Doesn't mean I still give too much of an opinion on where we should go or what they should do, how that video should be edited, although I've never edited a video in my life. But one of the game changers for me has been personality profiling. So you've got red energies, of which I am, you've got yellow energies, which are people-based. You've got the green energies that need processes and systems done, but they will follow through 100%. And you've got your blue energies, which are more data-driven, system-orientated. And it's really important that if you think about that as, there's 8 profiles underneath those 4 energies. If you have a real good balance between that, it makes a high-performing team. Yeah. So I'm almost looking at this personality profiling tool that we do and seeing where's the percentage, because we're data-driven. I'm a data-driven person. Data doesn't lie, people do. So if we can find where that percentage is potentially missing in our team, we can then go out and recruit to that percentage gap that we have, and try and keep people, working in their right seats, doing the things that they really enjoy. Yeah. Unfortunately, we all do 80% of shit that we don't. Yeah. But naturally, I'm a good leader in setting a vision, but I'm a horrendous manager, because I'm so militant with myself, whether it's the gym or, my parents put your school shoes in pairs by the door, don't leave your food on the side, it must go in the dishwasher. Right. I grew up in quite a strict...
micromanaged.
Yeah, micromanaged household. And I was lucky to go to private school. I'm the only one of the 4 kids who ever did, because I'm 12 years younger than them. So parents thought it was the right thing to do. But then that was very disciplined and very process orientated, methodical. And that's, I think, transpired now. So I expect that of people. Yeah. So my most recent hire, which is my most expensive salary, is an ops manager who is very people orientated and can sort of take my strategy and help to guide them, support them, deals with the SOPs, and sort of trying to take me away a little bit, because I've been described as a speedboat, and then everybody else has just got to try and keep up and surf the wake.
Crazy. And it's funny, because like I was just saying, can entrepreneurship be taught? There are different types of entrepreneurs. I'm the complete opposite to that. I'm happy to get involved with a vision and talk to the staff, motivate, all of that sort of thing. But I don't really care if you come to work or not. Like we have,
let's go work for Mark.
Yeah, we have like unlimited paid holiday. You can take as much holiday as you please. I don't care. I've told you what the outcome's got to be. I don't really give a fuck how you get there. Yeah. But still strict in the sense that if you don't get there, unfortunately, you just won't be able to work here anymore. Yeah. And if you do need my help, let me know. Otherwise, good luck. So it's just interesting. Like you can have like 2 people that from the outside you would say, right, both entrepreneurs, both got businesses, both in the property sector, both data driven, both doing, but actually completely different approach, and still, that doesn't make you wrong or right.
I'm probably more flexible than I've made myself sound then. They work from home and all that stuff's now obviously still available. We have an office, but I don't force anyone to work there. Yeah. So there's all that kind of stuff that comes with it. I think it's more important now as well. Yeah. I've got 4 kids under 12. I don't want to be in the office all day, every day. I miss loads of little things with the kids growing up in the early days. Of course. So important for lifestyle.
And so that managing your team based on what colour they are, is that something that you introduced recently? Like, do you do that sort of vehemently now? Like, the team must have a good balance between these different colours. Like, how do you monitor that, and what difference has it made from when you didn't?
Yeah, most definitely. It's made a huge difference. We will recruit, basically, it's part of our recruiting process. So we'll do, we'll put an advert out for whatever role it is. We'll then do a 15-minute conversation. And then a part of that, before we do a face-to-face, we will send them the report. So it's 96 data points is what you get. And then it chucks out the report that's back. So like my bookkeeper, perfect example, when her report came in, equally, this is important, I got my cousin to write the job advert, because she's an FD in London. Right. So she writes like someone who does that job. So half of the challenge is, me being an activating energy, red energy it's called, will write it quite visionary, quite proactive, quite salesy, quite detailed, sorry, not very detailed, because I'm a headline bullet point person. Whereas if you're recruiting somebody on your delivery who needs to follow the process and make sure the customers get great outcomes and all that, you need someone in the same energy to write the report for you.
Yeah.
So it's just been really good to understand where people's core focus is. And of course, we are all of these 8 energies, but the idea is underneath those 4 profiles, the more time you spend, you know, as an example, I'm very much ideation, but I pendulum between working on systems and processes and being in the tech to being on a stage all day, every day. But if I'm on a stage all day, every day, or for 2 days, it will sap my energy to the nth degree that the next day I will have to be in a room on my own to almost recharge my batteries before I can sort of go back to normal Gary, as it were. So it's understanding that, which gets everybody to deal really well.
How did you get to the stage where the first business that you sort of left behind and evolved into the second one, before you actually did that move, maybe it was taken out of your control, I don't know, but like before you actually made that move, there must have been many, many days where you, like you said, were unhappy with what you were doing. What was the thing that, looking back, like, should you have made that move sooner? And what were the things that were telling you, this is not how it's supposed to be, Gary?
You know, they talk about the making money, and I was money chasing basically. So, you know, we had moved into our house in 2011. We'd had nice holidays. We had got decent cars. You know, I let my best mate buy in 2009. Then when I went on a honeymoon 2 years later, I realised I needed to buy him back out.
Right.
I actually borrowed some money from mum and dad to make that happen. And it was just a continual thing of, we were making all this money and everything was there and the business was kind of good. And it got harder in sort of the end of 2014, and I started to see it was going to get harder. I'm just sitting there thinking, you know, I'm coming to work, I'm on a hamster wheel, I'm doing the thing that I've always done. And I hated that fact of knowing that if I wanted to stop the business tomorrow, that it would still have to continue, because the liable debt on 750,000, it was 20%. So it's roughly 150 grand that I knew over the next 2 years I would have to pay back to the insurance company.
Yeah.
So I was like, I just can't carry on with this stress, this worry.
Can't get far enough out the other side to balance it out.
No. And there was always, you know, we would buy life insurance leads. It would be Facebook ads that would drive in life insurance leads for mums, or life insurance leads for dads, or all of these kind of stuff that would bring £6 life insurance policies in, as you were saying a moment ago, like high numbers but low volume. And, you know, no disrespect to parents or anything else, but on half terms, it would always be those policies that gets cancelled, because that £6 needs to be spent on entertaining your kids rather than killing them.
Yeah.
So it just got to, I was lucky in the sense that in 2012, when my daughter was born, I was back to work 3 days after she was born. And it was probably one of my biggest regrets, you know, to have a regret, but it then made me be at home. Luckily, the second one, luckily, we had a C-section, so it forced me to be at home to kind of help out a little bit more. But having had that most profitable year in the April, it was just one of those. Amelie was going to be starting school. We had, the property market had gone up again after the crash. So we had equity we didn't expect. It was just the right time for everything to kind of align. So for them to get that no from the bank, you know, we had managed to get him move into that house. There was just one of those things where I drove in, we moved to the new house, and I'm like, I can't keep doing this. Right, that's it, I'm done. And I just went home and said, I'm not doing insurance anymore. I'm going back to mortgages.
And then you had to find a way of being able to cover that, still cover that life insurance that was going to get clawed back from your new business.
Yeah.
So your new business had to earn money just to pay back the old business. Yeah. And then eventually, obviously, after time, that went away and it could start standing on its own 2 feet.
The benefit of sacrificing. So I'll give you an example. I've got an employed advisor who joined me a year ago. He's banked about 70,000 in year one. Yeah. And that's with leads given to him from the day that he started. Obviously, the market's been hard, so it's probably a fair assumption. I've had one previously that's done 150 grand when the market was great and everybody's buying and investing and everything else. But in 2016, starting out with a self-employed niche, talking to a specific audience, being in the right networks, I ended up banking 324,000.
Wow.
So not only did it almost completely clear that kind of debt, you know, it's 7 times the average or whatever if we do the maths. But that was coming from a point of I had no option. Yeah. You know, I literally burned my boats on the 1st of January. If I didn't go all in 12-hour days, 6-day weeks, how I was going to pay this new mortgage, how I was going to continue to pay the car finance that we had.
So how does an entrepreneur know then when they're in a business that? So you were quite lucky in the sense that it sounds like the original business and the later businesses have always been, pretty successful. So I don't know if you feel equipped to answer this or not, but I was going to say, how does an entrepreneur know when enough is enough, that isn't working, or is that not something that you've really had to experience too much?
Well, I have. If you think about employment, my last employed job, I knew that wasn't working, and I went self-employed having just bought my first flat in the November, which is the worst time to kind of go self-employed. Again, it was a burn the boat situation, but for me, it was always one of those. I think my strength is I would always kind of back myself.
Yeah.
And I always look at it as what's the worst that can kind of happen. And I think, if it's a bit like, I spent quite a lot of money now, and I realised it was a bit of a marketing hack, Mark. Being in these rooms full of business owners paying for courses, that would give me an opportunity over a period of time to basically make everybody know that I was the self-employed mortgage guy, and it was a great lead source for us, or at least a great lead source. But I would always know that if I was in control of it, then it would all be down to me rather than the outside forces. And although I've been in mortgages for 20 years now, I fucking hate it. I hate mortgages. There's so much outside of the control. I love the outcome that we get for our clients and the life-changing things that we do, but every day I don't enjoy the business or the job or that side of it.
It's not as exciting as, I don't know, being a Premier League footballer or something.
No, exactly.
But I think that's overrated. The idea that, I see a lot of people, especially around this time of the year, like my son's just done his GCSEs, and so a lot of my friends' sons and daughters have just done their GCSEs, and I see a lot of advice of people saying, like, follow your passion, do something you're passionate about, and da-da-da-da-da. And I feel it's a little bit overrated in the sense that quite often you can mistake, passions for hobbies, and most hobbies just don't really pay that well. If you're passionate about horses, for instance, maybe you should go and look after horses it just doesn't pay any money, right? You'd be better off finding what colour you are in that sense of passion. Are you an operational person? Are you a salesperson? That sort of passion, and make money and enjoy horses in your own time. I feel like there's a little bit of confusion there around people when they say, like, follow your passion. I was an accidental salesperson. I left school with no qualifications. I bummed around in different jobs and accidentally fell into a state agency and then got trained on how to do sales, and then became a salesperson. And then, fortunately, quite liked that. And I can take that passion, if you want to call it that, into different roles. But, I enjoy watching football. I shouldn't mistake my passion for being football, so I should go and do a job in football, because, I'll probably end up, I don't know, an administrator in a small League 2 club that I'll hate. I'm not actually going to play football, and even if I did, I'd hate that as well because I'm rubbish at it. So I think there's a fine line, isn't there, between that sort of your passion and what you were saying really about what colour are you? That's probably more accurate, isn't it? People leave school with no qualifications. That's no problem. Let's find out what you are, what you are naturally good at. Someone was saying to me the other day, like, if it was up to me, what would I get Fraser, my son, to do as a journey into the world? And I said, well, he's different to me, so this probably wouldn't suit him because he's a different colour to me. But if it were me, I've got a friend who's got a bar in Turkey. I'd get him to go out there and have to dance on the bar for a summer because he'd fucking hate it, but it would give him confidence. By the end of it, he'd be like, I can do anything. Yeah. And then I get him to work in an estate agency because that's shit as well. But you're forced into it. You don't have a choice. You got to go and speak to people about important decisions. And at the end of that, then we could have a conversation about what we wanted to do, So finding your passion, I think, isn't just, like I say, it's not just about what do you like? What's your hobbies? Because that don't fucking go nowhere.
Are you passionate about tech?
I think I am, actually. I think,
there you go. That's a big part of what you do, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I'm passionate about tech. I think probably I'm more passionate about the idea of helping people and also not having to do very much.
I can relate to that. Give me automation all day long. Automation over a person.
Them two things, they'll fire me up. It doesn't matter if we go into a estate agency. Like you say, estate agency, there's nothing particularly interesting about it. Mortgages, there's nothing interesting about it. You can name pretty much any industry and say there's nothing that interesting about it, unless, even say something like the music industry. Yeah, it sounds great. But unless you're the actual singer, the rest of it's shit. Right, so we can say this about any industry, like we just said about football, sport. When I first left school, I thought my passion was sport, so I just naturally went and did a BTEC in sports and leisure. But what does that mean? That means you're just going to work in a leisure centre. Like, that's shit.
Yeah,
that's nothing to do with sport. Yeah.
Well, you only have to look at Joe Wicks. I always think Joe Wicks and like Ben Francis, obviously two really hyper successful people. Joe Wicks has always been into his fitness, but he's not the best personal trainer. He's not even a chef, but he's got books and obviously his big app. But there's going to be days where he is passionate about what he does and the end result that he gets for his clients. But there's going to be days where he's fucking hated what he's doing.
Yeah.
It's going to be the same for Ben Francis.
And he has to do all the other shit to do with running a business as well, right?
Exactly.
And he has to be passionate, a little bit passionate about some of the jobs he does in that business.
Yeah.
And some of the other things he won't want to do. Maybe he doesn't, like some people, it sounds weird to me, but some people actually prefer doing numbers and VAT returns and things like that than speaking on a stage.
Yeah.
Like, for me, I'd hate the numbers bit.
Yeah.
I could do it if I had to, because, like, you find a way, right?
Don't light you up.
I'd want to fucking kill myself, So, like, it's that side of things. So last question then. Of all the businesses that you now speak to and help, what would you say is the most common problem that you come across and the most common advice that you end up giving them?
If we look at where they are versus where they want to be, you can typically find, it depends on the phase of business. That's an important point. So if they're at the beginning of the journey, it's wearing too many hats, it's not having enough time, but that's part of the process. That's going to be, you need to get yourself a PA as quickly as you possibly can. I think the biggest thing that I find in that kind of early lifestyle phase is not doing enough marketing and nurturing of existing leads. It's basically not having, I look at actually leads and sales are great. You have to do them. But if you haven't got a foundational CRM system where you're putting those prospects and those leads, because I look at it as we get leads into our business, that's just someone who said, I want to have a conversation. Yeah. They go into a prospect stage when you're at the point where they're actually ready to move a little bit more forward, and then you effectively make the sale. So the goal is to get as many leads into your business, to convert as many of those into as prospects as you can, to then give you your sales for the future. And I think the foundational thing of a CRM and consistently looking at driving new people into that CRM. And then once you start to get those three things working and it becomes a little bit more predictable, then you can start to really nail what's your business strategy. Yeah. What do my finances need to look like? What's the bigger vision of where we're going and how does that need to look? And then you can start thinking about team and where you're going in that direction as well. So I think that's the foundation for me now, particularly with AI, the world that we live in, the competitive space that, is out there, as you rightly said. Social media is more noisy. Everybody's doing a blog. Loads of people have got YouTube channels. What was your percent? 24-year-olds are saying they're content creators doing one post a week. CRM is the game changer for business.
Love it. Brilliant. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.